Hey guys, thanks for tuning into this video. We're going to be creating a boss character in this episode. However, due to some of the recording that I did before, the audio quality wasn't great, so I have to narrate over the top of it. Hopefully I'll be able to keep up with the images. Anyway, let's jump into creating a boss. Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at doing is we're going to actually be picking out what mesh we're going to be using for our boss character. I wanted one of the larger ones from the Cinti pack, so I'm just putting in a couple now into the scene just to have a look at their size in comparison to the character and the arena. So you can see I've got the player in the background there. I also wanted to look something that fitted the aesthetic. This one here looks alright, so I'm just starting to move it back to the character now to get the sizing. So as you can see, this is a lot larger than the regular player character. So this one looks like it should be alright. And of course I'm just testing it out now in the play space so that I can actually see as the character moves around the size comparison. So we're coming in now, we're just having a look. So yeah, it's almost probably just under twice the size of the character, which is a good size for a large boss like that. So now we'll pause it. And back into play speed, so I'm pretty happy with that one there. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to do the same way that we do any other AI character. We're going to go create new AI in the wizard, and we're going to drag that mesh that we chose onto the character. We're going to select the animator controller, just drag it back onto the screen, and we're going to choose, so we've got a few here that we can choose. Now we've got the melee combat, we've also got the shooter combat there, but there is actually a on this next one, so the FSM, we've also got arena melee and regular melee, but there's also the shooter boss, so we're going to try that one out when we had it, because I know it does a couple of extra things, so we'll give that one a look. And of course I have to change the animated controller over to shooter once I do that. So once we've got all that filled out, we're just going to click create, and that's going to put it at the 0 point, so I'm going to find where it is. It's come up named as the mesh, so we're just going to name that as our boss guy. And then I'm just going to find a point that I want to bring it to with the camera. I'm going to keep Control, Shift and F, and that's going to bring it up to that point. As we can see, the capsule here is has sort of come off a bit differently. I think because these ones are actually bigger size than regular meshes or regular humanoid meshes, they've come up looking a bit funky. So I'm just going to adjust the capsule collider there. That's all fine. I'm just going to hit play and just see how it looks like just off the bat. So once that loads in. So now we can see it's in the idle pose, and it's also moving around, but we can see as it's moving there, its feet are basically sliding along the ground as it's moving along. And the reason for this is because it's taking its speed and distance, or its movement, off of the nav mesh. It's currently a nav mesh AI controller, so the animation speed for the character is faster than what it needs to be, or we need to increase the size of the increase the speed of the nav mesh agent. So we can do that here. When we have a look, we've got the speed set in there. So we go to change this value and we hit play. But you'll find, because I'm actually doing the audio after I've already recorded this, so you'll find that this doesn't actually work, and there's a reason for that which I'll explain next. But you can see he's still sliding on the ground, and he's not moving as you would when you were using the character. Judging by his size. So the reason for that is actually in the shooter controller, and it's in the locomotion or the movement section. Might take me a little while to get to it. Alright, I'll actually come up to that later. So I'm actually one of the first things I'm going to do is put on a ragdoll onto the character, and you can see now that it's put a ragdoll in relatively the okay place. A couple of blocks are out there, but you can always fix that up later. So I've just put in a test with that. Step offset, and now we finally get to the movement. So you can see here I've got it animation speed 1, so we can actually chuck that in half, and then we can use that to make up for the speed that it's the fact that it's only walking slow. But instead what I'm doing is actually using root motion. That will mean that it's walking at the same pace as the animation is in the thing, so it will actually follow the footsteps that it's got. But we do have to remember it will be different as I'm going through here, because you'll see that the speeds are going to be super increased now because I've selected root motion. Go. So now when it goes to move, it's flying around and doing all sorts of crazy loop-to-loops because it's too fast for it to stop. So Yeah, I made a little bit of an error there. I wasn't supposed to tick root motion for that test, but you have to set all the values to 1. It's actually in the note field just next to animation speed and use root motion. It says change it all the values to 1 except for the rotations. So once they're all set to 1, we should see this now moving correctly as it goes to walk. So watching it now, so now it's obviously a lot better because we're seeing that as each foot moves along, it could be a little bit different, but otherwise it's fine. And it just looks like it's got stuck on some geometry here, and that's because of some of the colliders and that in it. But we're going to deal with that shortly. So as you can see, I'm hitting it, but it's still not doing anything to it, and there's a reason for that, which we'll go into shortly. But we can see now that it's moving along fine as we want it. So I actually turn off the root motion in this one here because it's colliding on there, because it's basing it's moving off root motion rather than off the nav mesh. It wasn't picking up the colliders too well for some of the meshes that were around on the nav mesh, and plus because the nav mesh bake on this is a little bit off, so I've actually set it to a nav mesh movement but adjusted the movement speeds on the controller, so now that's controlling it. It's making it a little bit better. There's still a little bit of slippage with the feet, but that can be tweaked a little. We can just go up an extra number. I believe I'd actually just doubled what the base standard is for the character, so now I'm just going to add 1 extra point onto that, so we're going to have 5, 7, 9 and 5, I believe, and then same for the strafe speed, although the character might not strafe too much until it's in combat, but we'll just give it a go. Alright, so now we can see it's walking a little bit smoother now, and it should have less trouble with running into physics objects and things like that. So you see now I'm running up to it, I'm going to start trying to throw punches and do all sorts of things to it, and it's sensing that it's getting punched, so it's trying to block, but it's not actually going into a combat mode. That's because we haven't set up any of the combat scripts on it, or any of the combat tags, should I say. So the next step would be to open that up and see whether we can actually get it. We'll change the damage layer to player, because we want it to be able to actually target the player. We don't want it to ignore tags, or do we? What have I put in here? Enemy. Okay, yeah, so I'll set it so that it will ignore any enemies around it and will only aim or try and damage the player, so it won't do friendly fire on that. Now we've got it so it's always aiming. I think I put that on there just to check something. We've also got the head check with the transforms, so we can put in its head that it needs to move if it was going to look. Didn't really want to play around with this one too much because it was a little bit, yeah, I mean it's a little bit in depth, but you can see there's a lot of settings there that we can play with if we wanted the boss to be able to watch you with its head as it was running around doing things. Just a cool effect that you can have, but not something that I was really aiming for with this boss anyway. So I'm not sure what I'm doing here at the moment. I think I'm just going through my folder for trying to find the weapons, I think. Oh, yep, to put a weapon on the inside of it. So yeah, so I was looking around for the weapons folder. I couldn't remember exactly where I'd save them to, so I thought I'll actually just have a look for one that I know I've already got in the scene, and then draw that out. So I select this character obviously, and then I zoom in and try and find its weapon. So we try to give it a shooter weapon because it is a shooter boss. I really wanted a melee weapon, but yeah, I just thought I'd find that. So as you can see now, I've selected the NPC that's holding it rather than the weapon itself, so then I know what it's called, so I'm just typing in staff, and you can see, yep, there's the goblin staff. And here's my weapons folder with all the weapons that we've created. So there's one way that I'm doing it, and this way doesn't actually work, and you'll see what happens when we start the game. So you can see I've put it in the right hand, but it's not actually popping up on the screen anywhere. And I thought that might actually work. It might automatically spawn it. I couldn't remember how the AIs did it, but you can see he's carrying the thing because he's in the it's got it listed as equipped, but there's actually not the object on his hand. It's not actually spawning in as an instance when we start the game. And of course he's still not set to actually target the player. You can see you can attack him, so he's definitely there, being controlled by the AI controller. That's fine. but he doesn't have the weapon. And the reason for that is because we need to actually put the weapon in his hierarchy. We don't need to assign it to that the right weapon field on the shooter manager script. That will automatically be done. So what we need to do is actually drag it onto the boss itself in the hand slot, or the default equip slot. I believe it's actually just drop it to the hand, and it knows which one's the hand, and will automatically equip that to the to its inventory. And you can see here I didn't actually want to do the shooter, so I'm redoing it again just as a melee thing. So it's still going to be the same size and everything, but I'm just recreating it overall. In the end, I didn't really want to have the shooter because I did want it to be a melee boss. Now, of course, I've got to bring it back into the scene, so I'm going to rename it again. Let's call it Boss Guy. Then I'm going to Control-Shift-F and move him up to there. And you can see now we've got a little bit more going on. So we've got the capsule is actually different on this one for some reason. So we've got the nav agents marker, but we've also got the capsule collider, and even though it's the same mesh, it's popped it in a different spot, and I'm not sure why. It's slightly angled, but it still works perfectly fine. So we've put on root motion. I've turned it back off because I realised that's not what I wanted, and I put back in the values. I believe it was 5795. Not 5895. That's fine. Just go with that. No, it was 7. I did decide on 7. Okay. So 579. And then of course we're going to do animation with ragdoll, and we're going to have to set up the ragdoll again. So we're going to click on here. Going to create the ragdoll, and you can see, yeah, something with that center thing on this this character. I don't know what it is, but the bone's not in the right position that it's trying to find. So I'm going to fix that up as much as I can. Not a major problem. I wasn't really going to go big with the ragdolls on this, but I can show you how you can find that ragdoll, and then locate it. So I've actually alt-clicked there to drop down the entire hierarchy, and I've just tried to locate the spine that actually has the box collider on it, and you can see there's your damage receiver, your character joint, and your box collider. So we click on that, and now we can actually move the box to the shape that we want. So you see I'm just sort of adjusting the values there to put it so it's in the center. It was slightly off center for whatever reason. And I've just sort of tried to expand it in a different way to make it fit the chest a bit more. So now you can see it's more central and more in the right spot. And the head also needs to come down, so we need to find where the head is. So we've got the neck there, and then the head, and now we've got our sphere collider there. So we just changed the Y value down to 0, and it pretty much sits where the head is, so happy with that. Everything else looks okay enough for now, so we don't have to worry too much about it. Oh, no, sorry, there was that box. And you can see that box there is on a weird angle, and there's nothing I can do about that. I can't actually rotate the box collider. It's got something to do with the fact that the hips on the character are different. I tried rotating it, and it obviously didn't help out at all there. So we'll just set that back to as it is, and we'll just have to leave it there for now. We can always modify that a little bit later, but there's not much we can do for that. So I'm just going to test it out now and test out how this character goes, because we've switched over to, of course, the Malay AI. Let it load up for a while, and you can see now it's got the character there. So we're going to punch it. Everything looks like it operates as it should, but he's not moving around. And there's actually no need for him to move around at the moment, which is why he's not. So now I'm just going to look at his detection and figure out why he's not actually moving around. So you can see you can sight method, yeah, it's visual, it's fine. So we're just sorting through that. My screen's actually a bit shrunken at the moment, so I can't quite see what's being written on screen clearly. I don't have it in the full resolution. But as you can see, as we go down, we're trying to find the eyes for the character, and then come up to the top. You can see there's that there. So that's just putting the eyes transform in there, and now we can select the find target stuff. We can fiddle around with the way that it sights the targets at the player. Doesn't really matter. We just have to make sure that we are actually looking for the player, and that we've also got the layer set to player. So both the tag and the layers need to be set to player so that we know that we're picking up the correct one. And then of course we can also set the obstruction tag, so anything in the default or the stop move layer, we want to be able to block the line of sight. So you can see there, we're just playing around with the debug to figure out exactly what was going on, or what the radiuses were all set up to, radii, however you want to say it. The rest of those are all set up fairly okay. So now we can just go to things like step offset, just having a look over some of the other stats for it, see if there's anything else that I can try and fix up. Don't really need to do any of that. So we've definitely got the agent set to able to go at the start. It was ticked there for disable agent at the start, but it's not what we want. So now I'm running up, I'm going to punch it, see if it's going to target me, and now it is, but of course it's zipping about all over the place. And we're like, what the heck is going on? So that's not right. It's not meant to do that. Go back to movement. We don't have root motion on, but we're just going to set all those values off so that we have got root motion, and we're going to test that. Now I'm going to run up, I'm going to throw the punch to alert it that I'm there. It's already spotted me beforehand. So now it's using root motion and it's actually moving in the direction of me correctly. However, it's having a bit of trouble lining up where it wants to go in order to throw the punch. So what's going on there is that it's because it's so big, it's going past the point that it needs to stop at in order to throw a punch at me or to attack me, and then going, I need to back up, but then it backs up and it's too far away. So it's got the issues with the combat setting. So we need to go in there, need to adjust the attack distance. So I'm going to set that to 2. The rest can pretty much stay as it is, I believe. So yeah, minimum distance of the target can be 1, because what it's doing is it's going, minimum distance 2, but my character is obviously colliding with the player even though I'm still standing 2 away, so it's having a bit of trouble there. So we just increase that, decrease the minimum distance of the target down to 1 so that it can actually be close, but can also still stay 2 away in order to throw the punch. So now you can see it's actually throwing punches. One of the problems that it's got though is that the punches it's throwing are all actually higher than my player's collider, so it's trying to punch just directly in front of the boss rather than actually punching down towards the character. So we need to sort out the animations for it. So if we have a look here, I've got the melee thing. Also we've also tagged it to only hurt the enemy, so we're going to tag it to hurt the player now. And if we wanted to adjust the power of that shot, we can open the default info and it will handle that. So I needed to find my weapons folder if I wanted to drop a weapon in on it. So we'll do that. It's the wrong folder, I think. Yep, prefabs, weapons, there we go. So there's my different weapons. So I wanted to get the goblin sword. And we can drag it in there, but that's not going to work. I don't know why I keep doing that. It's not how it is supposed to work. Attack me, bro. You can't even hit me. So yeah, clearly it wasn't equipping the weapon, and that's because of the same issue that we had before. So that's alright, we've already got the hand and everything selected, so we can just drop that. We'll drop our goblin longsword onto it. Make sure it's in the right spot. Yep, it's definitely there. So now to 0 out the transforms. Whoops. There we go. We can see it needs to be rotated as well to get into the right spot for the character. So we can do that manually, just ensuring that we got the right part selected. And we're just going to fiddle through there. It takes me a little while to do this sometimes because all the sorts of the funky angles and doing it on one screen, that sort of thing. So we just need to line up to that. Looks like it's sitting correctly or roughly where we want it to. Move it up a little bit. And we can see that that's all good. So do we... Yep, because I don't want it to be maximised. I wanted to see how it looks like in the game thing and be able to tweak it a little bit as I go through. If you set it to maximise, it's harder to get out of the window. So you can see he's holding it like it's a two-handed sword because it's the golden katana. You can see it doesn't quite sit right. So bang, does a few damage, and then bang, I'm dead. So it's pretty good for a boss. 2 hits and I'm dead. But it's not quite how we want it, but that'll have to do for now. Okay, so now we've got to maximise just to make sure that everything's working alright. So you can see he's doing this sort of strike that's basically just straight down, because I think that's the first of the attacks, and that should be okay. So now I'm just adjusting the sword to make sure it's actually the right size for what I wanted. We can always move that in a little bit more and push it up. Just because the character is actually larger, I wanted the sword itself to be also larger to match a giant boss style sword. Also because he's supposed to be holding it 2 hands, but there's only enough space there for one of his hands, so just have to do some modifying of that. And we'll give that a test. So you can see now it's a lot larger. It's also sitting in his hand a little bit better. Still needs to be some readjusting. You see it's sort of going through his thing there. And we can see that, yeah, well, I mean, that one went straight into the head, but it's also bouncing a little bit off the ground there. So we do need to make some adjustments for how that's supposed to go in the animation, which we'll do a little bit later, but we can see it's, for the most part, working the way we want it to. And the size wise, yeah, I think it's already big enough. I wouldn't want to make it too much bigger, but at least this way we can get a little feel for how it's in the game. We will close that one out and we'll move on to the next part now, I believe. Have a look at that. So you can see there, yep, we've got Invector AI's melee combat. We want to actually duplicate that, and I think I do that from the folder itself. So I go into Windows and I just copy and paste. Is that how I do it? Yeah, Show and Explorer. So you can see there, I've just got the file. Just going to copy it. And then paste that we've got a copy, and I'm just going to rename that one to boss on the end of it so that I know that that's the different one there. I'm just going to let that Unity pick up that we've made the new file, and it'll go, yep, that's all cool. Now we're going to select our boss guy, and we're going to replace the current controller with the combat boss one. So what this means is that I'm just duplicating it as a backup so that I'm not editing over the top of the original one and ruining it for everyone else. So we're going to come in here, we're going to look for our attack, because he's always going to have the sword, so we don't have to worry about many of the others. So we're just going to go sword attack, make sure that we've got it. It was in the weak attack ones, I think, so when we have a look, we make sure that this is the correct one that was playing. So that's not the same one. We need to find the heavy sword one. It's like a two-handed sword. Might actually have gone past it. Where's... Katana attack. Yep, so I just chose the wrong one, that's fine. So now you can see we're using the basic ones that have come with the Invector one. So I've just replaced it with attack A, which is the one that comes from Invector, but used for the standard attack. So it's actually going to be not a two-handed sword attack. When we punch, you'll see the difference. So So he's swinging, but of course that's going over the head, and it's not lining up with the times for hurting the character. So the hitbox isn't coming on quite at the right time. So let's just have a look at how we can fix that up. So you can try and get another one that maybe attacks a little bit lower, because again they're attacking a bit too high. That one there stabs straight forward, but it's not an attack that I want it to keep repeating because it doesn't really have a flow-on effect. So we'll try putting that one on and we'll see what it does. So he comes up, get him to attack. You see it's a backhanded attack, and it only gets me on that last one there because it's a straight up down attack, but you can see the first one there missed me. So these animations aren't really going to work out, especially for a character of this size, so we need to figure out what we're going to do for the animations to fix it up. Now what I've done is I actually already had a kobold animation pack for the two-handed sword, so I've gone and I've actually brought that into my game. You'll need, if you're going to have a character that's a different type or things like that, you'll need to source your own animations for that. And as you can see here, I've obviously started the project again and gone back to after I've imported the assets, and yeah, we can see that the sword's too big. It's basically colliding with different parts of the map, or it's just not swinging at him at all because it's too high for the character sizes. So we need to replace them, and I can show you how to do that through here. Just have to track down the attack again. Should be in weak attack katana. There we go, you found it. Good job. Alright, so you can see now that we've changed it to those combos, but it's just not working out, so we need to find something better for it. And I do that by having a look. It's not at the events, mate. It's what was I trying to achieve here? I think I was trying to set up the the times. Okay, so the framing. Oh, interesting. Maybe I didn't put the kobold ones on this animation. I thought I did. Doesn't matter. Anyway, so you can see that we've got the start damage and the end damage slot there. So I'm sure I put Longsword Anim Set Pro. I did. There we go. Good. So what I've done here is I've brought in the Longsword Anim Set Pro pack, and I've looked for an attack that I wanted the boss character to use as its default attack. So you can see here I'm going through some of the attack. We're having a look. Just going to pick one. That one goes straight down. That one's pretty good. So we can trial that one. Then we've got T2, which is another one. It's more of a stepping forward one. So we can have that as number 2. And that one there comes around and does a big fancy arc. And there he's standing still and just doing a big, throwing a log over his shoulder. So these ones are going just different directional attacks, things like that. I was just sitting through here trying to pick out the best one that I wanted. And I apologise, it might take me a little while, but as soon as we get to the next part, it'll be good. Okay, yep, so I pick a different one that I wanted instead. That's not going to help anyone because it's still attacking left and right. So it is as simple as just dropping it into the right block, but then of course we need to set up the attack timings. So once we get around to it, that will help. Obviously, just getting myself lost in the how much fun it is to do this. Yay! Alright, so now we're ready, we've got the attack, we're having a look, and we need to look at what time the attack should start, so what time we should start dealing damage in the sweeping effect. So as we come through, you can see it's probably about here on the downswing that we would turn our hitbox on, so that anything it hits in that time will take damage, or will start taking damage from this point on in the animation. So we look for that, we can see that it says 11, or it's like 20% or something like that, so we can put in 0.9, I think it was it 9%? I'll have to go back and have a look at that. So yeah, so it was not, sorry, it was 11 seconds, but it was 9% on the thing. So we wanted 0.9 for when it started to occur, and then of course when it should stop. We're looking at as it's coming back from the swing that it's just done. So at about 15%. So only between 9 and 15% is when the hitbox will actually be engaged. So we need to set that 9, and the next one is 15. And then allow movement at 8. We can always change that around a little bit later so that the character doesn't move. Now we need to look at the next one and do the exact same thing. You can see, yep, it's coming down. We want it to be, as it's sort of coming down in the chop, we want it to turn on probably about there. Yeah, that one there's a bit further down. So 30% I believe was that one. So we just set it to 0.3. So, yep, and then that comes down. So once it reaches the bottom of its swing, so it's roughly there, and we look and that's about 40%. So we're really going 30 to 40. So we go 0.3, then 0.4. Because it's obviously out of 1, so 1 is 100%, so we just divide that and put it into the decimal, which makes it easier. So of course we want it to be roughly here, that when it starts striking something is when it starts doing damage. So we look, that's 20%, and just to speed things up, we'll know where we're going. So that one there becomes 34, I think it was. So yeah, I think I was just having a look at some of the other ones there. Now we're actually going to test that out and see how it works. I'm just going to make sure, I'm going to put it in the scene so that I can actually see the character and follow it and make sure it's doing the right animations as we're going past it. Alright, so now we run up. So it's still doing the regular idle, but now that we come up, it's going to attack us and it's going to do our new animation. And that is fantastic, except for the fact that it killed me in one go. I don't even know if I can actually... Yeah, no, I can respawn, that's good. So we come up, he's stumbling over the top of my body, that's great. And again, yep, another one-shot kill. So it's doing a lot of damage with that one shot. I think it's because it's the katana. I don't think there's any multipliers applied to it, but it's certainly doing more damage than it should. But we could adjust that. And now I'm just going back into the game to test it out on the bigger screen. I'm going to try and dodge it so it gets to the next attack. Oh no, sorry, you can see I'm trying to do it there. Am I just trying to adjust? Oh no, that's right. So I'm trying to look for where the actual damage settings are coming from for the sword, because the default info is just for the hands. It doesn't actually have the sword's damage. So I was just trying to track down where it was. And you can see we go through. It is actually on the sword. However, it's not the instant sword that comes in, which I thought it might have been, and I was having a lot of trouble there trying to get it, because you see there's damage options on that there. So if I see it in this little run, I should say, yep, damage options. As you see, it says 20 to stamina block, and then stamina recovery is 1, but there's no actual, here's the damage amount that you do. And that's because you can't actually set that at runtime, but you can set that when the object's not instant. So if you go to the prefab in your folder, you can get it. There's also supposed to be damage on attacks themselves. So in the animator, you can find the attacks that you need. Yep, go to A, and then you can see start damage, damage multiplier, so you can actually multiply the damage that you do depending on the animation that you've got. So if you've got, you know, like 3 animations like we do here, you can have the third one is the power one that does, like, you know, 1.4 times the amount of regular damage, that sort of thing. You can add a little bit of randomizing in that. But that's not where you do it. It took me a little while. I'm actually just going to skip ahead into the video to where I find it. I think that might be a bit more productive, so just give me a moment. So as you can see, I've actually gone to the prefab that's in our weapons folder, and looking at it there, you can see the damage options are there, including the damage type and the damage value. Now the type is so when you're actually doing different damage types like fire or ice damage and stuff like that, if you want to put those in, they can trigger off certain things in the animated controller, which are quite fun. But there we've set the damage of the weapon manually. So we just come in here. It's going to set that down to something smaller just for the testing purposes, 15, so it doesn't kill us quite so much on contact. Just going to press play, and we'll try that out in the game. There we go. And still did a lot of damage. There you go, didn't quite kill us that much that time. At least I'm lasting a little bit longer now. So I know that it did take the damage down, but there might be something going on with the hitboxing and the way it's colliding with the player, or there might be a multiplier somewhere that I've missed, some sort of thing. But you can see that it's playing through the different animations that we have for it. But we'll take a look at that in another episode, and I'll see if I can clear up that damage. Now let's have a look at the FSM to try and set up some of the cool stuff on the boss. As we come down here, so we've got the behavior controller, and it's currently set to the melee character. Now, one of the things I did want to do was try and add in like a cool feature like a jump attack or something like that, but when I looked into it, I realised that's actually something I need to do with coding. So the way that it works is you have your FSM here, which you can use as like a node editing method of setting up the what your character does and for what reason. But the AI template comes with some base sets, and to do something else, you'll need to actually code it in and then have that code entered into this as an action, and then you can list that action on the node tree. That's going to take a lot more time in trying to teach you how to do the different code things, but there is already quite a bit there in order to get your characters working right. So you can see here, all you got to do is just add a new node, going to call it leap, and on that then we need to like add another action so that we can tie it in there. However, yeah, again, like I said, that's going to be something that's going to take a bit more effort. But just looking at the node thing here, so you can see you can add more actions, more states, you can set up the transitions. That was the word I was trying to look for. So transition clauses and stuff like that work quite similar to the Mechanim animator system. So yeah, make what you will out of that. Once I've finished with the demo, I probably will come back and I might do one or two tutorials on coming up with a new action that you can add into the FSM system. But yeah, for now it's just going to take too much. But you can see you can set the true value. So this one here is saying to check for health. If health is under 40, then of course you'll flee or you'll do whatever the transition is. So it's really just me clicking around on the screen at the moment trying to figure out what I want to say and what I want to do, but I don't think there's anything else to come out of this. I'll just yeah, so for adding in the actions in this little clip here, I'm going to show you what the different scripts look like. You can already see them down in the actions folder there. That's the standard ones that come with the Invector AI beta. You can see once we click on them, it's going to bring up a little bit of script in the preview section on the side. And this is the AI flee one. We've also got other ones here like target action, send message, and just basically the behaviours that you want to have happen, or the actions that you want to have happen. So you can see here there's a bit of detail to writing them up, and again that's going to take a lot longer than what I want to do, but it does allow you to create some cool new features for your AI, and then you place them in as actions on the FSM, and you get to edit them as you would with the animation or the Mechanim animator. So anyway, that's pretty much how the FSM works. I'll probably do a bit more in depth in another episode, but that's it for this episode, and I'll catch you guys in the new one. Thanks for watching.